Due to legality concerns, I won't be showing the DMCA letter and notice to GameJolt, but I will be showing footage of Metroid 2 in the background, and I hope you enjoy that instead, and I hope you understand. So Nintendo has seen fit to enforce its property ownership on its IPs and copyrighted materials. Now, I want to tell you right now that I 100% agree with what Nintendo does on the basis that it is complete and totally fair. It's DMCA. It's really the definition of what a DMCA is. Nintendo has seen fit to take down multiple fan games from a website called GameJolt. Now, I can't really show you the letter or the legalistic terminology used here, but please understand, Nintendo sent a letter to the owners of the website telling them they need to take down these games. And if I'm interpreting this wrong, if I'm completely wrong about this, I apologize greatly. I'm not trying to stir up trouble, but somebody sent me this information and said Nintendo is DMCAing multiple fan games. Now, these games aren't really high quality ROM remakes. These are kind of like, Flash games. From something similar would be like Newgrounds, where you can play like Flash games of different things. And a lot of the copyrighted material would consist of Super Mario World, Super Mario Land, Pokemon Gold, Silver, Sapphire. So for anyone who sits there and says Nintendo doesn't enforce their IPs on older games, that is completely untrue. And despite Nintendo not really being forefront with Metroid as a franchise, they recently took down a Metroid 2 remake. Now, on top of all of this, they also have taken down Pokemon Uranium, and the absolute worst, which I cannot stand this one thing, is they removed the Nintendo Power Archive that I covered in a story. And I think that is absolutely horrendous and terrible, because archive is there as an archive. You don't seem to understand that history forgets. Look, a big example of what I'm talking about is you look back to the PlayStation Super NES hybrid, and it was 20 plus years later until we actually physically saw the system. And the details of that is that somebody told somebody else to gather all the prototypes up in a garbage bag and throw them away. And thankfully, one or two of them escaped the garbage. And that's just how it was. There is no fucking museum because video games were such a new form of art. It is extremely hard to find these prototypes and things like this. So remembering history and retaining history on the internet is almost the next best thing that can be done to physical things. And I really dislike that Nintendo took down that archive. However, I think this does prompt one of the bigger discussion points. So again, I'm not sure what I'm going to throw in the background as footage. I hope you guys understand. There's not really much I can put in the background that would contribute to this, but I want to kind of hit on DMCA. So all of the games that were customized and made as, not ROM hacks, but somebody literally put together assets from a Nintendo game and made a completely different game, those are illegal. They're illegal. And I know a lot of you guys will cry fair use and parody. It's not true. I'm sorry. So when I went to school, I learned about fair use and parody in depth, and I have since then learned quite a bit. So when you see shows where they use video game music in the background, for example, The Completionist, no offense, I'm not throwing anything his way, but when he uses the Mega Man music in the background, when it's not custom, when he uses Mario music or Banjo-Kazooie music, and it's not custom, I need to emphasize that. Somebody didn't remix it, somebody didn't customize it and transform it into something else. He is literally breaking copyright. That's just my example, and most of the time, people don't care, because they think, hey, exposure is good, we make millions of dollars anyways. This is the thoughts of the big corporation. So when I use my videos, when I do things like Pokemon Theories on my channel, you might be thinking to yourself, well, you're just stealing Nintendo's assets and using it for something else, right? So you're doing the same thing. But it's not, because it's parody, criticism, and it's transformative work. I'm putting together all sorts of things to create something completely different and new while critiquing and parodying the subject that I am discussing. For example, I'm criticizing criticizing a thing in the game. Okay, so why do all the trainers stand around and do nothing all day? I'm criticizing the fact that trainers often stay in the same position, or they have a certain walk cycle, or they appear at certain times. That's critiquing, and I make a theory based around it using evidence and multiple images from different things, both free and copyrighted material. And again, just because you credit someone, that doesn't give you the right to what you are using, okay? You didn't create Sonic, so why do you think crediting Sega is going to allow you to make a custom Sega game? If you think that you are in the right, then why don't you just go and work for Sega? Oh, it's not that easy to get hired by Sega, right? Well, here's the thing. If you think you are honestly entitled to making a custom Sonic game, a custom Nintendo game, then become a programmer and get hired by those companies. Wouldn't that be better? If you're making these custom games, you obviously enjoy the games enough to take it to the next level, to take the next step. So I'm not really understanding why a lot of people are up in arms about this. Now, granted, I do think it's really shitty to shut down fan ROMs that are extremely high quality for any other reason than they're afraid the publicity that those fan ROMs are receiving would cut into their own profits. But I mean, they're still within their rights. They didn't license Pokemon. They didn't license Metroid. They didn't license the Nintendo Power magazine. And all of those individual editors, authors, the artists who wrote and drew the artwork for the Nintendo Power magazines, as shitty as it is, as much as I'm against it, Nintendo is still well within their rights to take that stuff down. As it is not parody, it is not critiquing, and archiving information does not fall under the Copyright Act. Historically speaking, displaying physical copies in the museum would be a-okay, but allowing the entire world free use to Nintendo Power is technically infringing a copyright, whether it's free or paid for, and that's a really big problem and a shame in today's age. That's where we're at. That's where we're sitting at, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm very sorry. Again, the same thing with using video game footage in your background without having it at all relate to what you're speaking about. It would be difficult to have a court rule in your favor. So for example, if I was talking about a Pokemon game and for whatever reason I had Call of Duty footage in the background, it would be like, what would my defense be? Oh, I wanted to entertain people? Now, if I was talking about Pokemon Gold and I had Pokemon Gold as the background footage, it would be a lot easier to relate that and say, well, Your Honor, I was discussing some Pokemon Gold elements to what I was speaking about in the video, and you can see that I'm displaying and showing the same exact game as what I'm discussing. And that way, somehow, it would link together. So for example, since I'm speaking about the DMCAs of Metroid and Mario games and custom Flash games, I could essentially use that in the background here, but since I'm really not discussing that specific game that much, I would have to be very selective about which ones I was going to use. So since I've spoken about Metroid 2 being taken down, I could use Metroid 2 gameplay or a Metroid game and just discuss it and talk about it. And hell, me personally, I would love to see a new Metroid game, and I think Metroid 2 has aged quite a bit, and at the end of the day, it's really up to Nintendo on whether or not they want to issue a Metroid 2 game. Now, before I get completely off subject, I'm going to wrap up this video by discussing one more small tiny thing. A lot of people have wanted me to discuss why Metroid has taken a back seat, why it isn't available anymore, why the Nintendo just doesn't seem to want to bring back Metroid, and the reasons why they're still copywriting and DMCAing fan projects, fan games, Flash games of Metroid if they don't give a shit about it. Well, Federation Force has come out, so obviously they care enough to release at least a spin-off game. But at the end of the day, we're looking for a core Metroid game. Well, Metroid the Other M kind of screwed the pooch on that because sales were so terrible for that, Nintendo doesn't want to take another risk on it. And the same thing could be said for Federation Force, as it was a real big gamble and it hasn't been received as the 10 out of 10 game of the year type of stuff that the original Metroid Prime game was received as, hence warranting new and more Metroid games. And this is kind of a double-edged sword because you don't want bad Metroid games to come out and you'd rather play the fan hacks and the fan ROM hacks and things like that, but at the same time, how how can you play them if Nintendo takes them down, and you don't want these bad games to be produced in the future, so you're not going to buy the bad games. So it's really difficult, but the reason why is Gunpei Yokai, I believe that's his name, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced it, died in a car wreck back in the 90s after designing the Virtual Boy. He was very stressed, upset, and he was a big letdown of the company because of what he did. Unfortunately, virtual reality wasn't there, and they rushed it, and he got screwed because of that. And so he's dead now, and so Metroid's been put in the back burner because the creator of the series is no longer with us. That's why they kind of issued the IP out to Retro Studios to make the primes, and you see that there hasn't been really any more Metroid primes. It's been pretty stagnant. Other M wasn't that good of a game, unfortunately, and Metroid is taking a back seat because the creator is no longer there. Miyamoto has focused his efforts on Star Fox and Super Mario, and you might say, oh, well, those make money. No, Star Fox, it is not better than Metroid in terms of sales, believe it or not. Hence why that is not the answer. It's not all about money, and it's not all about sales. That's not why Nintendo DMCA's Metroid remakes. It is about preserving the image in the event that they themselves desire to make a game in the future. And that is not me saying they are making a game, because they clearly are not. They released Federation Force, and I truly believe that's all they have. I would be extremely shocked to see a Metroid game come out for the NX. I was shocked that a Metroid game did not come out for the Wii U with the touchscreen capabilities, but alas, again, the lead man, the creator of the baby that is Metroid, is dead, and thus there's no reason to do this stuff. There's no pushing force behind it, and it's really depressing, but that is one of the biggest reasons why we don't have a new Metroid 2 remake. That is one of the biggest reasons why Nintendo DMCAs these games from GameJolt, Metroid oriented, Metroid or not, and that is why Nintendo wants to keep their images clean and nice. So in the future, if they decide to make new games based around certain IPs like Metroid 2, then they can. So for those out there who are thinking, oh, fair use, parody, and all of that stuff, it's not true. It's not something that you can just snap your fingers and say, well, I made a custom Metroid game, fair use and parody. That's not how it works. Maybe back in the day when Nintendo wasn't so skilled at finding things on the internet, you could have gotten away with that. But nowadays, it's 2016, DMCAs come from left and right, and at any given time, my channel could be DMCA'd by Nintendo too, just for the simple fact that I use assets and parodies. But I have spoken to Nintendo's lawyers in the past about what I do, and as long as it falls within fair use, I'm fairly okay. It's very difficult, and I have since then tried to become even better at not using assets if I do not have to. And that's what you have to do if you're looking for a way to do these type of things. Remember, critiquing and parody are two separate things, and you need to learn the exact definitions of them and see if your work falls within those parameters. If it does, good for you. If it doesn't, then don't be surprised if someday your work gets deleted and just never exists ever again. So I've been your host, Protomario, and I'm signing out. I hope this shines a light on why Nintendo does what it does. I don't defend Nintendo. I don't think they're right in what they do, but they are legally capable of doing this. Morally right? Probably not. They shouldn't be so afraid of custom works, as Sega does embrace custom ROM works and things like that. But then again, Sega isn't producing the most high quality of games. I think the last good Sonic game was Generations, and that was alright. But I mean, come on, dude. You see Nintendo produces great Mario games, Mario Kart, side spin-off games, Star Fox. These are games, they aren't horrible, and they aren't the best things in the world, but they're still pretty damn good compared to what Sega is doing with Sonic. So you see why Nintendo is more focused on protecting their IPs than Sonic is, or Sega rather. Anyways, guys, you have yourselves a great day. Hope you enjoyed the background footage, which probably will end up being some type of Metroid 2. If you enjoyed that background footage and you understand why people want a remake of this specific game, then leave the comment down below. It is an aged game and it needs an update, a remaster of some kind. Nintendo has since remastered the original Metroid and called it Metroid Zero and put it on the Game Boy Advance. It's a very good game. You should check it out if you have not. It is way better than the original in my opinion. No offense to people who really love the original. I like the original, but I think the remaster and remake does it a lot better and fixes a lot of problems. But drop yourselves a comment down in the section below. I've been your host, Protomario. I'm signing out. Good gaming, and as always, God bless.